Order! Order in the Grand Council! Supreme Chancellor Zaxos's thunderous voice echoed through the crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council. His four arms raised in unison, demanding silence from the chattering representatives of 300 spacefaring civilizations. The humans, again with the humans, Chancellor Zaxos muttered, running one of his hands through his luminescent head tendrils. Ambassador Krell, you have the floor. Present your report on their latest expansionist tendencies. Ambassador Krell, a tall, aristocratic figure with silver-scaled skin that caught the light of the chamber's floating orbs, rose from his seat. Unlike many of his fellow Draconians who preferred more militant positions, Krell had always advocated for diplomatic solutions. His reputation for level-headedness had earned him this coveted position in the Grand Council. Honored members of the Council, Krell began, his voice carrying the characteristic harmonics of his species. The humans continue to establish colonies at an unprecedented rate. In the past solar cycle alone, they have terraformed 12 previously uninhabitable worlds. Their technology... He paused, letting the magnitude of the situation sink in. Their technology advances at a rate that defies all our previous models of civilizational development. The chamber erupted in worried murmurs. A Zentaurian representative, their crystalline form pulsing with anxiety, spoke up. But they're confined to their sector, yes? The Treaty of New Saturn still holds? Krell's expression darkened. Technically, yes, but they're pushing the boundaries. Their survey ships have been spotted increasingly close to the Drachnid expanse. Military Commander Vexathor has already filed 3 official complaints about their presence near our mining operations. These primitives need to be taught their place. The booming voice belonged to General Vaxathor, Vexathor's superior, and one of the most decorated military leaders in the Empire. His massive form, covered in battle-scarred scales, rose from his seat. They emerged from their little blue world barely 2 centuries ago. Who are they to challenge the authority of civilizations that have ruled the stars for millennia? Krell felt his scales bristle at the general's tone, but maintained his diplomatic composure. Perhaps we should remember that these primitives managed to achieve in 2 centuries what took most of us 2 millennia. Their adaptability is remarkable. Their arrogance is remarkable, Vaxathor spat back. They treat space as if it's their playground, their birthright. Before Krell could respond, the chamber's emergency communications array burst to life. A holographic figure materialized in the center of the room, Commander Vexathor himself. His scales were pale, almost white with stress. High Council, there's been an incident. Chancellor Zaxos leaned forward. What kind of incident? We engaged a human vessel near the Drachnid expanse. They refused to leave our space. Standard protocol was followed. Warning shots were fired. And? Krell felt his heart sink. The human ship's shields failed unexpectedly. Our shots. There was a child aboard, a human child. She didn't survive. The silence that followed was deafening. Krell watched as expressions of shock, dismissal, and even contempt played across the faces of his fellow council members. They didn't understand. They couldn't comprehend what they had just done. Her name, Vexathor continued, his voice barely a whisper, was Emily Chen. She was 8 Earth years old. Surely the humans will understand it was an accident, someone asked. Krell's laugh was hollow, devoid of any humor. Understanding? You really don't know humans at all, do you? He turned to face the council, his voice rising with urgency. We have just killed one of their children. They're young. Do any of you understand what that means? Before anyone could respond, every communication device in the chamber began blaring simultaneously. On the central holographic display, a simple message appeared in stark red letters. You killed our child. Now you will learn why humans are feared. The message was signed, United Earth Government, speaking for all humanity. Krell closed his eyes, knowing that everything was about to change. The Empire had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, but in their arrogance, they had just made the biggest mistake in their history. They had awakened a sleeping giant, and its name was Humanity. Commander Vexathor sat in his quarters aboard the Imperial warship Destiny's Claw, watching the recorded footage for the 100th time. The small human vessel, barely larger than a standard transport, drifted just inside the border of the Drachnid expanse. Its designation, Deep Space Research Vessel Chen, Earth Registry. "You are in violation of Imperial space," his past self announced through the comm. "Withdraw immediately or face consequences." The response came back crystal clear. "This is Dr. Robert Chen. We're conducting authorized research on the quantum anomaly in this sector. Our presence here is protected under Article 7 of the New Saturn Treaty." Vexithor remembered his anger at their defiance. How dare these upstart humans quote Imperial law to him? He had ordered the warning shots, standard procedure. 3 precise plasma bursts that should have passed harmlessly by the vessel's bow. But something had gone wrong. The human ship's shields fluctuated at exactly the wrong moment. Later analysis would show a power surge in their experimental equipment had caused the malfunction. The plasma burst hit their engine section directly. The next part of the recording made his scales crawl. Dr. Chen's desperate voice. "Emily! Emily's in the engine room. She was showing her science project to the engineers. Please, cease fire." Too late. The secondary explosion ripped through the human ship's hull. Emergency force field containment saved most of the crew, but the engine section, where one curious 8-year-old human child had been proudly showing off her model of a quantum drive. Back in the present, Vexithor's communication panel lit up. Another message from the Grand Council, demanding explanations, seeking reassurance. They still didn't grasp the gravity of what had happened. "Just a single human child," General Vexithor had declared dismissively. "Regrettable, yes, but hardly a cause for concern. The Empire has faced far worse diplomatic incidents." But Commander Vexithor had seen the footage that didn't make it to the Council. The mother's scream when they found Emily's body. The father's dead-eyed stare as he transmitted the coordinates of the incident to Earth Command. The absolute silence from the human crew as they waited for rescue. Most disturbing of all was the final transmission from Dr. Chen before the human rescue ships arrived. No threats, no curses, just 8 words. "You should have killed all of us instead." The Imperial High Command dismissed it as human emotional hyperbole. They approved a standard compensation package, expressing regret for the unfortunate incident. Later that night, as Vexithor prepared for sleep cycle, his personal AI assistant interrupted with an alert. Every human ship across the galaxy, military and civilian alike, had just changed their transponder signatures to include one additional line. "Remember Emily Chen, age 8, murdered by the Empire." Vexithor felt true fear for the first time in his long military career. The Empire had forgotten one crucial detail about humans. They were the only known species that would burn down the universe to avenge a single child. The United Earth government's ultimatum arrived on every Imperial communication channel simultaneously. No diplomatic flourishes, no room for negotiation, just 5 demands. 1. Immediate surrender of Commander Vexithor and all personnel involved in Emily Chen's death. 2. Complete dismantling of all military installations within 50 light-years of human space. 3. Unrestricted access to Imperial territories for human vessels. 4. 10,000 worlds as compensation. 5. Public acknowledgement of the Empire's crime against humanity. The Grand Council laughed. 10,000 worlds? Unrestricted access? The humans had clearly lost their minds with grief. The Empire controlled millions of systems. Their fleet numbered in the hundreds of thousands. Their technology was the product of 10 millennia of advancement. "Let them rage," General Vexithor declared. "They will learn respect through force." The Empire deployed its 7th Fleet to the human border, 500 capital ships, each capable of reducing a planet to ash. A show of force to remind these upstart humans of their place in the galaxy. They never saw the attack coming. The first sign was when every Imperial quantum communications network went dark simultaneously. Then their navigational systems failed. Ships dropped out of hyperspace into unknown coordinates. Defense platforms turned on their own installations. "Impossible," the Imperial Techmaster said. "Our systems are unhackable. The humans are centuries behind our cybersecurity." The second wave hit before they could recover. Microscopic machines, billions of them, began appearing in Imperial world's atmospheres. They consumed military equipment with terrifying efficiency, leaving civilian infrastructure untouched. Weapons crumbled to dust. Warships collapsed into clouds of metallic sand. But the true horror came with the third wave, a new kind of weapon, something that defied Imperial physics. They called it the Void Blade, a beam of pure gravitational distortion that cut clean through planetary shields like they didn't exist. The Seventh Fleet's flagship, Pride of the Empire, found itself facing a single human vessel. Small, sleek, with a name painted in simple letters across its bow. Remember Emily. The human ship broadcasted a message across all frequencies. We tried to keep her safe. We followed your rules. We trusted your civilization. Our mistake. The Pride of the Empire, the most powerful warship ever built by the Imperial Navy, was sliced in half with surgical precision. As the ship's atmosphere vented into space, the last thing its crew heard was a child's laughter playing over their emergency channels. General Vaxithor, watching from his command center, finally understood. The humans hadn't been behind technologically. They had been holding back, content to play by the Empire's rules. Until now. A final transmission reached him before his systems went dark. That was just one task force, using weapons we considered too primitive for actual warfare. Would you like to see what we've been keeping in reserve? Ambassador Krell, observing from the council chamber, turned to his fellow representatives. We thought we were teaching them a lesson, he said quietly. Instead, they're teaching us one, and the class has only just begun. In the space of 6 hours, the mighty Seventh Fleet had ceased to exist. Not destroyed in glorious battle, but systematically dismantled by an enemy they had grievously underestimated. An enemy that had spent 2 centuries preparing for a war they hoped would never come. The humans hadn't just developed weapons. They had developed weapons specifically designed to counter every advantage the Empire possessed. And now, unleashed by grief and rage, they were going to demonstrate exactly why you should never, ever harm a human child. Ambassador Krell stood before the massive quantum display, watching humanity's war machine tear through the Empire's defenses. Each red dot representing an Imperial world going dark, each battle report more terrifying than the last. We never knew, he whispered. We mapped their military bases, counted their ships, measured their weapons. But we never understood what they were. The humans weren't just fighting a war. They were rewriting the rules of warfare itself. Their ships moved in ways that violated Imperial physics. Their weapons bypassed defenses that had protected worlds for millennia. Most terrifying of all was their precision. They destroyed only military targets, leaving civilian populations untouched. A junior aide rushed in, scales pale with fear. Ambassador, Earth has broadcast their military capabilities across all channels. They say it's just a courtesy, so we understand what's coming. The display shifted, showing recordings from Earth's weapons testing grounds. Entire planet-sized facilities dedicated to developing ways to defeat specific Imperial technologies. Quantum AI systems that could predict and counter any strategic move before it was made. Fleets of automated ships that could reduce themselves to quantum particles, passing through any defense before reforming. This is Project Emily, the broadcast announced. Named 200 years ago, when we first detected your civilization and realized war might one day come. Everything you see was developed for one purpose, to ensure that if you ever harmed one of our children, we could make you regret it thoroughly. Krell initiated emergency contact with Earth's diplomatic corps. A human face appeared on the screen. Admiral Sarah Zhang, her expression carved from stone. Ambassador Krell, come to surrender? Please, Krell began. We acknowledge our terrible mistake. The Empire will make any reasonable amends. Reasonable? Zhang's laugh was cold. Was it reasonable to fire on a research vessel? Was it reasonable to dismiss a child's death as a diplomatic incident? The Empire has ruled for 10,000 years. Surely we can. 10,000 years of evolution, and you never learned the most basic rule of the universe. Don't hurt someone's kid. Your Empire's time is over, Ambassador. The only question is how many more worlds you want to lose before accepting that fact. The transmission cut off. Moments later, another 100 Imperial worlds went dark. Krell turned to his aide. Get me everything we have on human family structures, their attachment to their young, their concept of revenge, everything. The data streamed in, painting a picture that made his heart stop. Humans would destroy everything they had built, burn every advantage they possessed, just to avenge one of their children. They were the only known species that grew more dangerous, not less, when protecting their young. 10,000 years of power, Krell muttered, watching another defense fleet disappear from the displays. Undone because we thought their restraint was weakness, their patience was fear, and their warnings were empty threats. The humans had tried peaceful contact. They had followed the rules. They had built their colonies slowly, carefully, respecting imperial boundaries. Not out of weakness, but because they hoped war would never be necessary. The Empire had mistaken their hope for peace as proof of inferiority. Now they were learning that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their advanced technology or superior tactics. It was their capacity for retribution, day by day. The Empire watched its worlds fall, not through brutal conquest, but through surgical strikes that left their military might in ruins while preserving civilian life. The humans released their classified weapons list, not as a threat, but as a courtesy. They called it the Emily Protocol, a comprehensive catalog of humanity's military capabilities that had been developing since their first contact with alien life. Project Sandcastle turned entire defense fleets to glass, their molecular bonds disrupted by targeted quantum fields. The Empire's mighty dreadnoughts became crystalline sculptures, beautiful and useless, monuments to their hubris. The Ghost Division, ships that could phase between dimensions, simply appeared inside planetary shield barriers. No alarms, no warnings, just human marines materializing in command centers, their weapons already drawn. But worst was the light of dawn, a weapon that could selectively disable any technology more advanced than what humanity had when they first reached space. Entire worlds found themselves thrown back to pre-spaceflight civilization in seconds. Your Empire, the human commander's broadcast, was built on the assumption that older means wiser, that tradition equals strength. Today you learn otherwise. The Centauri sector, heart of Imperial military production, fell in 6 hours. The legendary fortress worlds of the Outer Rim lasted barely a day. The quantum gates that had connected Imperial space for millennia blinked out one by one, replaced by human FTL corridors that only Earth vessels could access. Admiral Zhang personally led the assault on New Genesis, the Empire's oldest colony and symbolic heart. Her flagship, now renamed 4 Emily, didn't fire a single shot. Instead, it broadcast a simple message on all frequencies: the laughter of human children playing. The psychological impact was devastating. Imperial forces began surrendering at the mere sight of human vessels. The mighty races that had looked down on humanity now begged for mercy, only to receive the same response. The same mercy you showed Emily Chen. But it wasn't mindless revenge. Every human strike was calculated, every target chosen with surgical precision. They weren't destroying the Empire, they were dismantling it, piece by piece, with the same methodical care a scientist might use to take apart a complicated machine. The Drachnid expanse, where Emily had died, received special attention. Human forces converted it into a memorial system. Every military installation was transformed into a school or research center dedicated to peaceful sciences. The exact spot of Emily's death became the site of the largest hospital in known space, specializing in pediatric care for all species. Remember, the humans broadcast as another world fell. We didn't want this war. We would have been content to grow slowly, to learn from you, to build something together, but you taught us a different lesson instead. Now we're teaching one of our own. In the grand scheme of the galaxy, it had been just one child, one small life among trillions. But that, the Empire was learning, was exactly the point. To humanity, there was no such thing as just one child. The Empire's last desperate gambit came in the form of a superweapon, the Star Killer. a device capable of forcing a sun to go supernova. The message was clear: surrender, or we destroy entire systems. Humanity's response came within minutes. Not with weapons, but with laughter. "Did you think we hadn't prepared for this?" Admiral Zhang's voice echoed through Imperial Command. "Look up." Above every Imperial world, human quantum satellites activated, revealing themselves after decades of invisibility, each capable of containing a supernova within a pocket dimension. Ambassador Krell rushed to the emergency council session, clutching humanity's latest terms. His scales had lost their luster, his proud bearing shattered by weeks of watching the inevitable unfold. "They will accept our surrender," he announced to the remaining council members. "Their terms are interesting." The terms appeared on the central display. For every day Emily Chen didn't live, a world of the Empire will be converted to a human colony. For every tear her parents shed, a military installation will be dismantled. For every dream she never got to fulfill, an Imperial law will be rewritten. General Vaxathor, one of the few military leaders still alive, slumped in his chair. "How many tears? How many dreams?" Krell's voice was barely a whisper. "They sent us the calculations. 8,724 tears documented from her parents. 76,583 estimated dreams based on average human lifespans and childhood development data." "They're being merciful," Krell continued, ignoring the shocked gasps. "They could demand everything. Instead, they're offering us a chance to learn. Every world they take will include Imperial citizens who wish to stay. Every installation they convert will employ our people. Every law they change will protect all species, not just humans." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just winning the war, they were rewriting the very foundations of galactic civilization. "There's one more condition," Krell added. "Every Imperial child will be educated alongside human children. They call it the Emily Chen Memorial Education Initiative, to ensure, in their words, that no empire ever forgets the price of arrogance again." The council voted unanimously to accept the terms. Not out of fear, though there was plenty of that, but because for the first time in 10,000 years, they saw a future that might be better than their past. As Krell transmitted the Empire's acceptance, a final message came from Earth. "Your society valued power over compassion, tradition over growth, pride over wisdom. Emily Chen died because of those values. Her death marks the end of that era. The galaxy will know a different way forward. One measured not in territory controlled or ships commanded, but in children protected and dreams preserved." 100 years after Emily Chen's death, Ambassador Krell stood before the new Galactic Assembly. Gone were the crystalline spires and ancient thrones of the Imperial Council. In their place, a simple circular chamber where representatives of all species sat as equals. "The galaxy prospers," Krell addressed the assembly, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "Our children learn together in schools built where warships once docked. Our scientists collaborate in research centers converted from military bases. And everywhere in every world we remember." The central display activated, showing the Emily Chen Memorial on Earth. A simple hologram of a smiling 8-year-old girl, eternally frozen in time, surrounded by actual children of countless species playing together. "The humans could have destroyed us entirely," Krell continued. "Instead, they chose to remake us. The Empire's fall wasn't marked by burning worlds or shattered planets, but by the sound of children laughing." He gestured to the latest reports. Trade between worlds had reached unprecedented levels. Scientific advancement accelerated beyond Imperial-era predictions. The combined knowledge of thousands of civilizations, once hoarded by the Empire, now freely shared. "But never forget the price of this peace," Krell warned. "One child, one small life that the Empire, in its infinite arrogance, thought insignificant. We thought ourselves immortal, undefeatable, wise beyond measure. A child's death taught us otherwise." The assembly chamber's walls turned transparent, revealing the stars beyond. Each point of light represented not just a world, but a promise kept. The humans had rebuilt the galaxy not through fear, but through a simple principle: protect the children, all children, at any cost. Commander Vexithor's grandson now headed the largest pediatric research institute in known space. General Vaxithor's descendants served as peace officers in human colonies. The Empire's greatest weapons laboratories had become universities, where species once forbidden to interact now studied together. Emily Chen died because we believed power came from strength, Krell concluded. She lived on because humans showed us that true power comes from compassion. Remember her name, not as a warning, but as a promise. A promise that in this galaxy, every child, human, imperial, or otherwise, will live to see their dreams. As Krell stepped down from the podium, his aged eyes caught sight of a small human girl playing with a young Draconian in the assembly's courtyard. The human child was teaching the Draconian a game, something involving jumping between marked spaces on the ground. "Ambassador Krell," the human child called out, waving. "Want to play hopscotch with us?" Krell felt his heart squeeze. A century ago, such a scene would have been unthinkable. The mighty Empire would never have stooped to play children's games. But the Empire was gone. In its place stood something far stronger, a civilization built not on the power to take life, but on the promise to protect it. As Krell joined the children's game, he heard Emily Chen's laughter echo across the stars, not in vengeance, but in joy. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and somewhere, he hoped, a small 8-year-old girl was smiling.